afternoon and welcome to the working port of Boston. My name is Joe Morris and I'm the port director here at Massport. And on behalf of my colleagues, I thank you all for joining us here today to celebrate. Now, this is where it happens. This is where the hard-working men and women of the port move the goods that keep Massachusetts and New England moving. From the shoes on your feet to the winter jacket you're soon going to need, food on your table and even that table, to the television where you surely watch the Patriots every week. Those goods are more than likely to have moved through this facility safely and efficiently. You know, the new cranes behind me are the most visible of the recent changes, but there is so much more that went into the modernization of the port, and many in attendance played a part in making it all happen. Today we celebrate these partnerships and say thank you as the investments have resulted in improved connectivity to more markets for over 2,500 businesses that depend on the working port to ship their products to and from Massachusetts and New England. And as the former port director, Massport's CEO, has been very involved in this evolution and journey for many years. So please join me in welcoming Lisa Whelan to the stage.
And thank you to the entire maritime team who works every day so hard in the working port. You know, before we deepened the harbor and had these 3 new beautiful cranes, we had 2 services coming from China and North Europe that connected us to about 7 ports. And they brought ships carrying about 4,000 to 8,000 TEUs. But today, with these significant infrastructure investments, we now have 5 services. We're about to start a 6th, and we now have services connect us to new places like Vietnam and India, and now provide connectivity to 25 global ports and can serve ships carrying 12 to 14,000 TEUs. So those investments in critical infrastructure are paying off, and today is really about celebrating the partnership that made it all happen. And that partnership includes the public sector and the private sector, labor and business, local, state, and federal government all coming together. And this is the type of collaboration that continues to set us apart in Massachusetts and allows us to get really big things done. And so we're fortunate today to be joined by a prestigious group of speakers, and we'll hear from them shortly. But before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge some important people who helped also make this possible. And if you don't mind, please hold your applause until I get through this list. So of course, I'd like to start with my predecessor, Tom Glynn. Put simply, we would not be here without you. Tom's commitment to the maritime mission, strategic direction, and bold leadership helped make it possible. To our former Massport board members, Doug Husted and Dwayne Jackson, you greenlighted much of what we're doing. We have 2 members of the governor's cabinet here today, Secretary of Transportation and current Massport board member, Jamie Tesler, Secretary of Administration and Finance, Mike Heffernan, and Kristen Lepori, who used to be the Secretary of A&F and the Chief of Staff to the Governor. She couldn't join us today, but without her insights and support, this wouldn't have been possible. Dan Kraft is also here today. He's the President of the Kraft Group International and the President and CEO of International Forest Products. Dan has been a terrific business partner and champion of the port. We're also joined by Bernie O'Donnell, John Sharkey, Pat Considine, and Anthony Formosa from the ILA, Ambassador Flynn and Mrs. Kathy Flynn, Bill Eldridge, Conti Colantino, Steve Palmer, and Terry McDermott. You all were there from the start. Captain of the Port, Keely Benson, Jack Jancy from CBP, Kathy Abbott, who leads Boston Harbor Now, Vivian Lee, a longtime advocate of the port, John O'Donnell runs the Auto Port up in Charlestown, Kelly Strong from the Boston Shipping Association, former State Senator Jack Hart, Dr. Jason Lee from China Market Solutions, John Canestraro, President of the Marine Park Association, Scott Oconee and Jen Talhauser from the Army Corps of Engineers. And a few former colleagues of senior leadership at Massport, Sam Slyman, Mike Myron, Joe Lawless, and Mike Grady, and of course John Prankavicius, who's still with us and helping to make it possible. Let's give them all a hand. Elected officials couldn't be here today. That's Senator Nick Collins and Representative David Beal, but I wanted to acknowledge their efforts and all of their advocacy in helping to secure all of the funding that we needed. And then finally, there are 3 people who should be sitting with us today, but unfortunately they have passed. It's Mike Keegan, former Chief of Army Corps Civil Works and Project Management for the New England District. Mike helped lead the initial planning for the Boston Harbor Dredging Project and was an ally in securing leadership from the Corps in DC. Dick Meyer, the former head of the Boston Shipping Association, who worked tirelessly with the ILA and Massport to prove the value and importance of the working port. And finally, our beloved colleague Deb Haddon, former port director of Massport. She started all of this. She ensured that the Chief's report was signed in time for the WRDA 2014 authorization, and she pulled together an amazing coalition to make this all happen. So over the past couple of years, many people have gained a newfound appreciation for ports and supply chains. But we are fortunate here in Boston and the Commonwealth that our elected leadership understood the importance of ports well before the crisis. They knew how critical it was to invest in infrastructure, and they stayed the course through so many challenges and never lost sight of the larger vision. So on behalf of everyone at Massport, thank you for your steadfast leadership. And our first speaker today is Governor Charlie Baker. The governor was willing to make a big bet on Conley Terminal, and since he did, he has been all in on the working port and has put a significant amount of resources behind the effort. He knew investments in dredging and in Conley Terminal would make a difference for businesses across the Commonwealth, and we have been so fortunate to have you as our governor. Please join me in welcoming Governor Charlie Baker.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me just start by saying that that long list of folks whose names you mentioned as you went through your description about everybody who had a piece of this speaks in many ways to the fact that this particular occasion is a celebration of a lot of people and a lot of organizations and a lot of private and public sector players who put their shoulder to the wheel over an extended period of time and sort of stack this thing up the same way those buildings and those ships out there are stacked up. And this was not one project, it wasn't one office, it wasn't one enterprise that got us to where we are. It was a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of different entities making strategic decisions and strategic investments and changes in the way they did business, the way they worked together, the way they operated, the way they sold what it was we had available here to make the growth that's taken place in the port over the course of the past 8 years possible. I do want to give special thanks to the Kraft family because I think you called Dan Kraft a champion of the port. I think he's more like a giant pain in the neck about the port. But it translates more or less into the same thing, which is he never let any of us in public life forget about the opportunities and the possibilities that came with this place. And to the ILA, I just have to say, your role and your leadership and what you were willing to do to make this place sing was an incredibly important part of our ability to compete successfully and pull literally hundreds of millions of dollars alongside state funding from the federal government into this project, this series of projects to make this all possible. Lisa, you did a great job of running through all the numbers. I don't need to walk through them again. But this place is so much bigger, so much better, and has so much more potential than it did 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that everyone who's had a piece of this should be enormously proud of what they've accomplished. And I just want to say to you, Lisa, the job you did before, during, and after the pandemic with respect to all of Massport's properties and activities was extraordinary, and I don't think you get necessarily sometimes the support you deserve. And to my colleagues at the federal level, to the congressmen, to the senators, you folks were terrific on these issues all the way through, and you made an enormous difference. And having a council delegation here that is so focused on this port meant that we never had a chance to forget about it once over the course of our time in office as well. But today's a very big day. Everybody should be enormously pleased and proud of what's been done. But I would make the case that this should be viewed as the beginning of what can continue to be very significant growth, an incredibly important asset, not just to Boston, not just to South Boston, not just to Massachusetts, but to the New England region and to the Northeast. I mean, I'd love to come back here 5 or 10 years from now and see that number that was only 7 that went to 25 grow to 50 or more, because it's certainly possible given our geographic location, the quality of our public and private sector participants, and really the knowledge and the ingenuity that we bring to so many things we do here together. Thanks, and congratulations.
Thank you, Governor Baker. We'll put 50 ports on our action list. The governor has a great partner in Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. As you know, she crisscrosses the Commonwealth and has been a tremendous supporter for all the state's coastal communities, and especially as chair of the Seaport Economic Council. So please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito.
It is great to be here to celebrate and most importantly to say thank you. First and foremost, I want to thank the governor for opening up the act this afternoon, but the numbers are big. I mean, $8 billion, reaching over 2,500 businesses in New England, 9,000 direct jobs, 66,000 more jobs associated with this expansion, 7 ports to 25, and now you're hearing 50. But this is who we are in Boston. We lead, we should be at the cutting edge, we should be at the forefront, and it was needed for us to step up, more than the possibility, but to reach more potential and eventually our full potential at the Port of Boston. What I love about this is not just about Boston and Massachusetts, this is about the New England and the Northeast and having access to a whole lot more opportunity. When you think about the Kraft Group and how they've been such an incredible partner to this port and the ability for them to now not have to do business maybe in New York or other places and to bring back more to home, which is something that they always aspire to do. By their example and others, many will look to do more business here in our great city. But I want to say thank you to all the partners. It's a really big lesson of collaboration, federal and state, all electeds and others working together to put the funds and the resources behind this project. Hundreds of millions of dollars and making good decisions about massive cranes. These are beautiful to watch. To not only can you do cranes, but you have to dredge and you have to build a berth to go with it. So it's a collection of investments that work together and will serve this area for many, many decades to come. The reason I wanted to speak today, most importantly, is to thank Lisa Wieland and her team here at Massport. They have been incredible leaders here in the city and all things airport related, especially coming through the most difficult of times, certainly before COVID, managing the volume that you were dealing with and then literally going down to nothing, and standing up as a strong and inspirational leader with your team to get through the most challenging of times for Massport, but at the same time keep the projects of the port moving forward like this one. You deserve a whole lot of credit. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you, Lisa, and your team. We are grateful and we are very lucky to have you as the head of Massport. Congratulations to all of you.
Not only has she been an ally here in the port, but also out of Worcester Regional Airport. So thank you for all you've done out there for us too. So in addition to elected leadership, we are fortunate to have a strong collection of importers and exporters who use Conley Terminal to get their goods to market. And it includes our largest customer, our largest exporter, International Forest Products, which was founded by Mr. Robert Kraft. IFP is celebrating its 50th anniversary and is one of the leading exporters in all of North America. And Mr. Kraft has been a tremendous champion of both our maritime and our aviation missions. His leadership has been instrumental to our success over many, many years. 20 years ago, he was a part of the group, and he really helped us bring our first ship from Asia to the Port of Boston. And he has supported all of the recent critical infrastructure investments to keep this port competitive. And we are absolutely thrilled to have him join us here today. Please welcome up Mr. Robert Kraft.
Thank you very much, Lisa. You're an amazing leader, and the Commonwealth is very fortunate to have someone like you at the helm here at Massport that makes it easier to do business and actually is going to make Conley Terminal very, very productive over future years. I want to thank Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Mayor Wu, Senator Warren, Senator Markey, Steve Lynch, Council President Flynn, and I'm sorry I don't know all the other names, but this has been awesome what's gone on here, the public-private partnership. And, you know, I think Lisa sort of took it away. I was going to say some of you might wonder, what is he doing here? While we have a pretty good group of businesses 30 miles south of here in a town called Foxborough, I really started as 50 years ago, founded this company, International Forest Products, that I'm proud to say, under Dan's leadership now, is doing business in over 100 countries in the world. And you know, I just think as a little kid from Fuller Street in Brookline growing up, I pinched myself. And I thank all of you for building a port here that facilitates and allow us to do business. And while we use many port facilities around the world, there's no doubt that Boston, the city of Boston, and Conley Terminal is our favorite. We move over 4 million tons a year globally and over 2 million cubic feet of lumber and pads, and wherever we can steer business here, and you're right, Lieutenant Governor, we like to pull it from New York and all those Jet fans. But the transformation of this port, you know, should make us all feel good, because it represents a perfect example of how a public-private partnership should work. And Massport collaborated with the Baker-Polito administration, our federal delegation in Washington, the New England business community, and our guys at the Patriots, the Longshoremen, and the Massachusetts legislature to invest in modernization. And the product that our IFP team ships through Conley now is as competitive a place in the world because our supply chain flows through quickly with very little congestion, allowing us to reach dozens of markets with maximum efficiency. And whenever we can pull it from New York, this facilitates doing it, and we like that. And it's amazing that this is the only full-service container terminal in New England, supporting 66,000 jobs, generating over $8 billion in annual revenue. And, you know, it's just helping this whole region and economy to those of us who were born here and lived our whole lives here and love it and want to see it prosper. This is a very important Oh, I see Mayor Flynn. Always there, yeah, nice, and his lovely wife. Sorry for not being here. So with the transformation that's taken here, we feel this region is very well equipped to serve the future here. And it's been a real team effort what's happened here, and it's something that is very encouraging to our family, and we will continue to invest and do the things in this region that help this port grow and prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft, for your support for your business, and congrats again on IFP's 50th anniversary. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we were privileged to host President Biden at Logan Airport to celebrate investments in our international terminal, Terminal E. And at that event, the President called the Massachusetts delegation the, quote, most powerful and talented in the country. I wholeheartedly agree. So I'm happy to welcome our next speaker. She knows that infrastructure is about moving people and goods, but the Senator also knows and makes sure it's about creating economic opportunity and jobs for workers. And she makes sure the benefits of public investment go to the public. Please welcome Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you, Lisa. That's a very generous introduction. You know, I'm so glad to be with you in another celebration and with all of you, because that's what today is about. It's about public-private partnerships, and it is about celebrating, and it is about thinking about how we make this happen again and again in the future. Conley Terminal and the Boston Harbor dredging projects show how important it is to invest taxpayer dollars in public infrastructure. And for everyone who claims that government doesn't work or tax dollars are wasted, look at the widespread benefits of the investments that have been made here. I think 2 or 3 people have already referred to this. More than 2,500 businesses throughout this region move their goods in and out of this port. And here's the key. That is a 50% increase over just the past 5 years. That means local businesses are benefiting from this port, and they are hiring workers locally, and that matters to all of us. In the last decade, the economic, oh, you can do that. In the last decade, the economic benefits of the Port of Boston have doubled. And now the experts estimate that the port supports more than $8 billion in economic activity per year. That is a damn fine return on taxpayer investment. And projects like this just don't happen on their own. The Boston Harbor Dredging Project is a partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Commonwealth, and Massport. My federal colleagues, we've got Steve here, we've got Ed here. We fought hard for this project. We worked as a team. We had to fight off some very powerful naysayers. We've got stories we could tell. To keep this in the Water Resources Reform and Development Act, try saying that one 3 times fast, back in 2014. And the state also did a terrific job in advocating for more federal grants so that we could maintain and modernize the Conley Terminal. These investments made it possible for the port to better accommodate large container vessels and even larger ships in the future, so that Conley Terminal is now able to support continued growth, and that's what we want to see going forward. But we cannot rest here. Conley Terminal is one example of what happens when we upgrade our infrastructure, and now, after years of neglect of our infrastructure all across this nation, finally help is on the way. You know, for years and years and years, politicians in Washington talked about getting a big infrastructure bill done. And during last administration, Infrastructure Week became the punchline to a joke about how little government could accomplish. But now, the President and Congress have delivered, and now Massachusetts is going to receive literally billions and billions of dollars for our ports, for our highways, for roads, for transit, for bridges, and for broadband. That's how we build this state in the 21st century. And because this is about what we do in the future, using a moment of celebration to propel us forward, I just want to remind everybody, Democrats in Washington have passed an Inflation Reduction Act, which is the boldest environmental bill of our lifetimes. It will cut emissions by 40% in less than 8 years and produce 9 million new jobs, and many of those are going to be good union jobs. We also passed the CHIPS Act, which I just want to say, we like to call it here in Massachusetts, the CHIPS and Science Act, which is going to nearly double our investments in science and research over years to come. And one more thing that I have to mention, because a lot of us have been working on this for a long time, President Biden has taken a big step to help people with their student loan debt. I believe this is how we build a future. Together, these are huge investments in our future. Infrastructure is the foundation of our economy, and we're here today not just to celebrate what we have done, but what we're going to keep on doing to build a future for our Commonwealth and for our nation. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Ed Markey has been delivering for the Port of Boston for many, many years. He has had a very positive working relationship with the Army Corps for a very long time, and we've certainly been the beneficiary of that strong relationship. He's also a strong champion for union jobs and a great partner to Massport. Please welcome Senator Ed Markey.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here today. And it has been a great month for Massport. Started off with Joe Biden over at Logan Terminal E, and we're closing it out by celebrating years of work that have made the dream of invigorating the Port of Boston a reality. Long fought for federal investments are docking in Massachusetts, and our ambitions have a long runway. Massport has become a safe harbor for our state's economic future. So, thank you, Lisa, for all of your work. And the way I think of this, Lisa, is Tom Glynn. Can you stand, Tom, please? Tom, please stand. The guy is amazingly self-effacing. Tom and I went to Boston College together, and he actually had me come over here 10 years ago bring the head of the Army Corps of Engineers to do something that people were saying was impossible. How do you dredge Boston Harbor so it's ready for the ships coming through the Panama Canal? Or else, in Tom's words, we're going to have a supply chain crisis in New England. So Tom is usually right, but too soon for other people to fully appreciate it. So I just consider this, Tom, just a long Hail Mary, like Doug Flutie, caught here by Lisa, and today we're celebrating it in Enzo. This incredible, incredible achievement of just transforming the port. And we can't thank you enough, and Lisa, for your great work. You looked ahead, you led the way, and you, Lisa, you have been just absolutely great. And of course, we partnered with the Port Authority, my great colleagues, Senator Warren and I, working in the Senate to make sure that the funding would be there. And Steve Lynch, if you Google Public Works, his picture comes up, just this great selfie champion. And Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, thank you for your great work and just ensuring that this project, with all of the funding, came out as beautifully as it is. And our great state legislative leaders, Karen Spilka, Speaker Mariano, and all of the colleagues in the State House, Council President Eddie Flynn, Ray Flynn, and Kathy. It is a great day for Southie. This is a vision that people have for what is possible in Southie, and you have just done such an incredible job in making it come to pass. I see Colonel Adelano from the Army Corps of Engineers. This is an incredible public works project, dredging this harbor, making sure that it would be ready for the 21st century. Thank you. And Robert Kraft, thank you, and thanks to the business community for everything that you have done in partnering to make sure that Massachusetts beats New York and everyone else, everything that we work on. And my deepest appreciation to the union workers, represented by George McAvoy of the Longshoremen's Association, who made this expansion possible and who serve as the backbone of the Port of Boston each and every day. It's ports like Boston Harbor that serve as the economic anchor for the entire New England region, helping ensure that the Bay State remains competitive in our global economy. But even this strong economic anchor needed direct federal funding to weather the storms of COVID-19, the supply chain crisis, and rising inflation, especially as we transition to a new supersized shipping era. For years, other ports around the world were benefiting from expansion projects that allowed vessels called post-Panamax ships, the biggest in the world, which are the length of aircraft carriers and can carry nearly 3 times as much cargo as their predecessors, to dock on their shores. For a time, those new gargantuan giants of the sea were too large to dock in Boston. It's a simple formula. Larger ships mean more cargo. More cargo means more commerce. And more commerce means more jobs for Boston, for the Commonwealth, and for New England. And that's why when Tom brought me over here that day 10 years ago, it became my goal, partnering with Senator Warren, to make sure that as a member of the Public Works Committee, we would authorize the federal funding for the Boston Harbor Improvement Project to deepen the harbor, to accommodate this new generation of ships. In 2016, we included an additional $16 million towards this project, which was included in that year's bill. And given the economic import of the project, we knew that we needed this federal money immediately, which is why we joined together, Steve and Elizabeth and I, in calling for the Army Corps to secure an additional $113 million in federal funding between 2017 and 2019. But deepening Boston Harbor alone would not ensure that Boston could port post-Panamax ships. We also needed to construct supersized docks, procure colossal cranes, revamp our processing facilities, and that required additional investment from the federal government. And that's why we led the call, urging the Department of Transportation to help fund these port improvements. And from these efforts, we secured a $42 million fast lane grant. It's now called Infra, and a $20 million build grant, which was formerly called a Tiger grant. It's now called a RAISE grant, but by any other name. That money smells just as good as it comes to Boston. And combined, our efforts have resulted in $217 million in federal funding for the harbor dredging and terminal revitalization. A vision without funding is an hallucination. And so that is what we have worked. Our partners have a great new mayor, Michelle Wu, for the 21st century, the Green New Deal mayor, to make sure that all of this is done with the highest possible environmental and equity standards for what this city stands for. So these improvements are projected to double the harbor's container volume, grow 9,000 jobs in the port, generate billions in economic activity throughout New England. It's a maritime monster set to match the green monster in its importance to our city. This expansion will help secure Boston's place as a shining city upon a hill, as well as a gleaming port on the shore. Earlier this year, these post-Panamax ships, these giants of the sea, began arriving in Boston. In January, the ever-fortunate 1,100-foot-long ship capable of carrying 12,000 cargo containers became the largest vessel to ever dock in the city of Boston. We have come so far since 1773, when Boston Harbor's most famous cargo was several hundred chests of tea. Today, as a result of our collective efforts, roughly 2.3 million metric tons of cargo come into the harbor each year through Conley Terminal, benefiting over 2,500 businesses. Mainsails and masts, they have given way to cruise and container ships in Boston Harbor. But our position as a global maritime leader forges ahead into the 21st century. I am proud to join with all of you here today to celebrate this incredible moment where we usher in the next era of the 21st century for Boston Harbor. It's a proud day for our Commonwealth, and I congratulate everyone who played a role in making this possible.
Thank you, Senator Markey, and you were right to bring up those build and fast lane grants. Our next speaker started his work with the Port of Boston as an iron worker, working on the older cranes that you see further down the terminal from the new ones that we have here. And he probably knows the in and outs of Conley better than just about anyone here today. These days, Congressman Stephen Lynch works hard, day in and day out, for the people of his district. His role on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee has been key to delivering federal dollars, even as he remains attentive to all of the local needs of his community. Please welcome Congressman Stephen Lynch.
Good afternoon. Great to be here and to celebrate this great success. Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Bob Kraft, thank you for your family's commitment to the Port of Boston, but to New England as well, and Dan Kraft as well. Thank you for your leadership and your loyalty. To my partners in the federal end of things, Senator Warren, Senator Markey, thank you for your partnership. This would not have happened without the support of our two senators, and it can be difficult in the Senate, as we all know. It's a tougher road to hoe. And to my partner in city government, Mayor Wu, who is already making her mark on this city and has been a wonderful, wonderful partner to all of us. Thank you so much for your commitment as well. And also the rest of our city delegation, Council President Ed Flynn, and Councilor at Large Mike Flaherty, thank you for the work that you do each and every day. So this is a celebration of much work by many people, but I do want to just call out just one instance. You know, when things weren't going well here, when air traffic dropped by 82%, we weren't getting passengers or revenue here, when the number of ships coming in and delivering dropped drastically. You know, we had situations where ships that were targeted for or scheduled to deliver to Boston ended up delivering in Savannah, Georgia, and then they were trucking goods here. We were very worried about the need to, without revenue, to lay workers off. And Lisa and I had some very difficult conversations about that, about the idea that the revenue wasn't coming in, but the payroll was remaining to be met. And I'm so happy and proud that our leader, as the CEO of Massport, said, the last thing, the very last thing we will do here in the Port of Boston is to lay off the amazing workers here in the port during a time of economic hardship. So I really am grateful as a former union president of the Ironworkers that we had a CEO who understood what that would mean to families. And even though, because our money did not come fast enough, the relief did not come fast enough, there were some layoffs, I'm happy to say that every single union employee that had worked at the port before the crisis is now back on the job. So thank you as well, Lisa, for that. I just want to also call out, you know, as Senator Warren noted and Senator Markey noted, this has been a long fight, and sometimes these budget battles and getting money for these type of projects, and there was over $350 million for dredging the port. My colleague at the time was Mike Capuano, and he was senior to me on transportation. And that guy was like a dog on a bone when it came to trying to get money for the port. And I just want to say that, you know, Mike's no longer in office, but the heroic work he did on behalf of the Port of Boston and the people of New England should be recognized. He really helped deliver. And in case you want to know who's doing all the dredging work out here, I jog around Castle Island usually every day when I'm here in Boston. And I want to thank Jay Cashman and his crew. They're out there every single day doing that great work, doing the necessary dredging and blasting that's required to allow those larger ships to come into port. So thank you, Jay Cashman. As Lisa said, I'm really familiar with Conley Terminal. Not only did I work in the port, but my grandfather, Cornelius Michael Lynch, was president of the Riggers Union at the rope walk in Charlestown. So he did all the rope for the United States Navy during World War II. My other grandfather, my mother's father, John Thomas Havlin, drove truck for United Fruit here in the port. So this is a wonderful day for me to see that their legacy, their work is enlarged and enhanced today by this funding that we've been able to secure. And it really was a team effort working in Congress with the Biden administration. Look, I know that Biden's taken a lot of heat. I just want to say he's been amazing on delivering for Massachusetts and delivering for the working people of this country. This funding allowed Massport to make significant investments that enhanced and expanded our capacity at Logan Airport and the Maritime Port of Boston, which also improved our climate change resiliency, efficiency, and overall public safety. As I was saying, the COVID pandemic put enormous strain on our air travel and ocean commerce, and together we were able to work and to ensure that our port infrastructure and economy were supported throughout those challenging times. I've been working closely with Massport since I was first elected to Congress. It'll be 21 years this November. And now, almost 21 years later, we continue to work together to improve our airport, our ports, and terminals. Together, we secured over $350 million to dredge this Port of Boston Harbor, allowing the channel to accommodate those larger container vessels, which Ed Markey noted are now the largest capacity ships ever. We worked to get federal government funding for improvements to the Ray Flynn cruise port, and we secured 3 ship-to-shore cargo cranes behind us. Those are the big light blue ones. I actually welded the dark blue ones. You might not want to walk under those. It was a few years ago. And all of the projects created thousands and thousands of good-paying union jobs. They modernized our infrastructure and expanded the economic viability of the entire New England region. And we're continuing to see funding come in from the bipartisan infrastructure law. I just want to explain. So the big dig was $16 billion. $16 billion. This was the big dig over 20 years. What we just passed at the federal level was $8.5 billion over 5. So you might think about the impact that huge injection of infrastructure money will do to the quality of life and the economic viability of our region. As a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, we work closely with Secretary Buttigieg and the Biden administration on bipartisan infrastructure laws, and Massachusetts is already putting this historic funding to maximum use. This year alone, our state has received $2 billion in funding, and just a few weeks ago, we were with President Biden at Logan Airport to recognize the $62 million in funding we received that will be used to modernize and increase the climate resilience of terminals and roadways at Logan. That project alone, that one project alone, is expected to create 6,000 jobs. So I'm grateful to be surrounded by such dedicated partners. I know my ILA is here, the International Longshoremen's Association, and also my brothers and sisters from the Teamsters Union are here as well. Thank you for all the work that you do in the port. And that work in collaboration to address the most urgent needs of our communities will be addressed by us collectively over the next few years. I look forward to continuing our work together to ensure that our airport and maritime port are modernized, safe, and secure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Lynch. Appreciate your support each and every day. So in addition to our great leadership at the federal level, we are also lucky to have a mayor who understands the importance of planning ahead and investing to support the economy and job growth. And Michelle Wu knows that we have to keep our eyes on the big picture while also making sure that we're successful at doing all of the small things each and every day. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful and just a delight to see everyone here representing the key sectors that hold up our city's economy, the leaders across all levels of government, the business community, and our labor partners, and my colleagues at the City Council, and to be here as a new kid on the block. Right? I can't take credit for anything that has happened here. In my 10 months, I've just been so blessed to be at one special a day after another that is a result of the baton getting passed down from generation to generation of public officials in partnership with advocacy from community leaders. And so I know the vision that Ambassador Flynn, former Mayor Flynn, and all of those mayors in between, the ambitions of our community leaders and workers from generations back. Today, with this announcement, our future gets a whole lot brighter in the city of Boston. We have nearly 50 miles of waterfront in the city, and we want people to think of that as beautiful places to go enjoy and run along the beach and visit a treasure of an institution like the Children's Museum or the JFK Library or UMass. But we also want people to think of this as jobs, economic opportunity that's going to sustain our region for generations to come. Boston is approaching our 400th year, and that legacy is one of being a safe harbor, but also a working port. And so I'm so grateful to all of you in this space and the many others who are represented by your industries and your organizations who have put in the work to ensure that that legacy will stretch on for generations more. We will do everything that we can. I'm committed, I know my colleagues will hold us to it as well, to ensure that these maritime jobs stay right here in the city of Boston. Shipping, transport, seafood, the ways in which we're growing as a city need to grow to accommodate all of these sectors, and we can do so that in a way where we can truly be home for everyone. So thank you so much. We're tripling the number of ports, tripling the opportunity, and much more to come in the years ahead. Very excited to be with you.
We look forward to working with you to maintain a healthy, diversified economy. The next speaker has been a strong supporter of the Port of Boston. His family history is deeply rooted in the working port, as you've heard here today, as his family bears the name in the industrial park and at our cruise port. Boston City Council President Ed Flynn is always willing to be at the table to talk about issues facing the Port of Boston and make sure that Massport continues to operate as a good neighbor to the South Boston community. Please join me in welcoming City Council President Ed Flynn.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be here with my colleagues in government, Councilor Flaherty and Congressman Lynch, and our other colleagues, Senator Collins and Representative Beal. We have a great working relationship with Governor Baker and his team, along with Mayor Wu and her team. It's about working together. We discussed those public-private partnerships that are critical to making this Port of Boston work effectively. I'll be brief. I also wanted to highlight the important role, I know it's been mentioned, but this port means a lot to my family. My father's a proud member of the ILA, International Longshoremen Association. They have great jobs and have built this city. They have built this economy, helped build this economy. And I also want to acknowledge the important work that so many of our immigrants play in this community as well. This area here of Boston is special because if you're willing to work hard and put in the time and effort and learn a trade and learn a skill, this is the place to be. It's about hard work, discipline, and it's also a place that's welcoming to our military as well. I had the opportunity to enlist in the United States Navy right here. I had the opportunity to serve 25 years. But the working port of Boston is special because it brings us together as a city. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker has been a strong ally of the port. City Councilor Michael Flaherty has ensured that with all of the development on the South Boston waterfront and the areas surrounding the working port, that the impacts would not hinder the important work that happens each and every day. And he reminds us that the jobs at our facilities are great paying jobs that can support families. Please welcome Councilor Michael Flaherty.
Thank you, Lisa. And on behalf of our two colleagues, Senator Collins and Representative Beal, bring greetings for them. They have scheduling conflicts, but the good news is I've shaved half an hour off of the program, so you get to lunch fairly soon. But I speak on behalf of all of us, how grateful we are. This may be the Governor and Lieutenant Governor's last sort of official formal event at Massport, and how indebted we are to both of you for your commitment to our city, particularly the Port of Boston, and realizing very early on in your tenure that it's the main artery for and lifeline for the city in terms of getting goods and products in, and everything that's happening behind us, our colleges, our universities, our hospitals, our shopping centers, our cafes, our restaurants, our bodegas depend on all those products getting off. And it also is the ancillary services at the Grateful and Marine Industrial Park, cold storage, freight forwarding, marine ship repair, all of those beneficiaries of the great working Port of Boston would be remiss if we didn't just say thank you publicly. This may be the last Massport event that you guys have before you move on to other initiatives. And then, you've been great examples, obviously, for our mayor and hopefully for your successor. But you've also led the effort, and we've had two great stewards, obviously Tom Glenn behind you, but also Lisa Whalen. And as Congressman Lynch just alluded to in terms of keeping people working, what a lot of folks don't realize is when COVID hit, a lot of the nonprofits, and I speak as a citywide city council, not just South Boston, but East Boston and Charlestown, who again host a lot of Massport's activities, the nonprofits, the youth programs, the food pantries, the senior centers, a lot of them went without. People were delaying their commitment to them. Some of them had to cancel a commitment. They weren't able to have their own fundraisers. Massport, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Lisa Whalen never wavered. Never waver. And those organizations, those youth programs, the senior centers, the food pantries, the shelters, the educational programs, they continue to work on behalf of our city in partnership with my colleagues at government, with Mayor Wu and her predecessor, Mayor Walsh, and obviously the city council, because every day we were waking up hoping that it was going to end, but we were hearing that it was further delayed. And so this community and communities across the city, that partnership, Lisa, and the fact that you did not budge for 1 minute, the commitments that Massport made to this community and to the city went and continued on despite all that was happening. So we also owe you a debt of gratitude. And so on behalf of all of us here,
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. You know, it's emblematic what you said of just everyone kind of pulling together to pull through many crises over these past couple of years. As I mentioned at the start, this has been a collaboration between labor and business. The ILA has done a phenomenal job working in partnership to make Conley Terminal a great place to do business, increasing productivity and being with us to help make the case for investment. And representing the ILA today is Vice President of the Atlantic Coast District, George McAvoy.
Thank you, Lisa, for your kind introduction. Lisa has been a great friend to the ILA during her time as Port Director, and now in her role as Massport CEO. We appreciate her vision for the revitalization of the Port of Boston and the expertise with which she ensured her plan came to life. Next, I want to thank Senators Warren and Markey, Congressman Lynch, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Mayor Wu, City Council President Flynn, City Councilor Flaherty, for their willingness to take a chance and support this much-needed, huge investment in the Port of Boston. I'd also like to acknowledge all the hard work Senator Nick Collins and Representative Dave Beal have performed on behalf of the Port. Even though they aren't with us here today, we know that they've been with us since day one. Also, I'd like to thank Colonel John Adelano of the Army Corps. Thank you for understanding that the value that the Port brings, not only to the Commonwealth, but also the New England region. Without the harbor dredged in these new cranes, not only would the livelihoods of the men and women of the ILA be in jeopardy, but the economic engine that is the Port of Boston, which generates $8.2 billion for the Commonwealth and supports indirectly about 66,000 jobs, would have left for ports capable of handling the big ships that are now in port here in Boston. I'd also like to take a minute to thank former Massport CEO Tom Glynn and former Massport Port Director Mike Myron. We appreciate the fact that you left this port better than you found it. I also have to take a minute to thank my boss, Bernie O'Donnell. He's been a longshoreman here for over 40 years, and he laid the foundation for everything that we see here too. Also like to recognize business agent Pat Considine, Anthony Famusa, and John Sharkey of the ILA, as well as, I can't even see him, which I find shocking, ILA dispatcher Dennis McLaughlin, who in a couple of weeks, where is he? Is going to be receiving an award from the Cushing Gavin Foundation for all of his work in the recovering community. We're very proud of him and everyone else. Mr. Kraft and the Kraft Group, and all of our customers that help support the livelihoods of the men and women in the ILA, we appreciate that you use the Port of Boston and not our neighbors down south. In that not only do you use us, but you continue to advocate on our behalf. It's not lost on us. I'd also like to take a minute to recognize the hard-working men and women of the ILA who have worked non-stop throughout the pandemic. In March and April of 2020, when it seemed like the whole world was shutting down, our members kept showing up to work just like they always had, to ensure that the goods that we all need kept coming in through the Port of Boston. This was no surprise to anybody who had seen the transformation of the ILA since 2012. During our contract negotiations in 2012, the ILA recognized that we needed to put the health of the Port of Boston ahead of next week's paycheck. In that contract, the ILA approved overtime reductions. We added more vessel start times and flexibility than any other port on the East Coast, as well as a sweeping overhaul of internal work rules to help foster increased productivity and efficiency to bring the volume to the port so we could help make the case that the investment that we have now received was worth making. Shortly after this contract's implementation, the Journal of Commerce ranked Conley Terminal as the #1 most improved container terminal for shipside productivity in all of North America. The men and women of the ILA here in Boston take extreme pride in being among the top producing ports in the world, and we are constantly trying to improve along with our partners at Massport. While it is great to stand up here and talk about the recent successes we have had in the Port of Boston, I don't feel like our work here is done. The last deep water berth in all of Boston Harbor is at the beginning stages of seeing a revitalization similar to what has taken place here at Conley Terminal. What we used to call the North Jetty is now going to be called the South Boston Marine Multiport. It had sat vacant for close to 30 years, and because past legislators had the foresight to protect it as a designated port area for future maritime use, it now can be used as a vital component in Massachusetts' offshore wind industry. The ILA is looking forward to working with future offshore wind developers in all of our historical ILA ports in the state, including New Bedford, Salem, Fall River, and right here in Boston. And my final message up here is for Kelly Strong, Executive Director of Boston Shipping Association, and Joe Morris, Massport's Board Director. You heard the governor. He said he wants to come back here in 5 to 10 years and talk about connecting to 50 ports instead of 25. Well, we're about to negotiate a 6-year contract. In order to make that happen, all you have to do is listen to us.
Okay, the challenge has been tossed out there. Thanks, George. We owe you tremendous gratitude for the transformation you've led. Thank you. Our final speaker today is from the Army Corps, and as you all know, with the Boston Harbor Dredging Project, the Army Corps has been a terrific partner as we've worked through many years to bring this project to fruition. It's been a very long process, but the team is always ready to roll up its sleeves to get their job done. So I'm delighted to welcome up Colonel John Adelano.
Thanks, everybody. You know, General McConville, Chief of Staff of the Army, says winning matters. And he talks that about winning the nation's wars. General Spellman, we define winning a little bit differently. It's finishing quality projects on time, on budget, safely. And we crushed it. We crushed it. Most of you are familiar with construction. It never goes clean. We finished early, we finished under budget, and you can see big ships and big cranes out there. It's awesome. We, the Corps, we don't do anything alone, nothing. So quickly, I want to thank our partners. So the U.S. Coast Guard, Boston Pilots Association, Boston Harbor Docking Pilots, Massport, Aviation Operations at Boston International Airport, recreational and commercial fishermen, and many local, state, and federal environmental resource agencies. I want to recognize my project manager, Jen Talhauser. Stand up. As well as our fantastic contractors, Great Lakes Dredge and Dock and Cashman Dredging and the Dutra Group for their incredible work in getting this work fixed. Really fantastic job. You know, to do something like this, I have district commanders, even the chief called me like, okay, how did you guys do this? How did you do a project like this early, under budget? It takes a deliberate plan. It takes the discipline to work that plan and work their issues every single day. And, you know, talking to Jen, like, when you've got a team where you've got the Coast Guard, the airport, Massport, everybody on a group chat saying, hey, we got to move this dredge, we got to do this, we got to play. Like, that's the level of detail that was required to get this thing done. Well done to all of us. So, thank you.
For turning out today. A really big congratulations to everyone who played such a big part in making this all happen. And now if I could invite up our speakers for a ribbon cutting and photo.
All right.